Hi again then guys, and welcome to of course another speed build for Gran Turismo Sport in particular, this time for a very popular import car, and funnily enough this is actually a vehicle which hasn't dropped its speed by anywhere near as much compared to Gran Turismo 6 as a lot of the others. In fact, funnily enough, it's roughly similar to the Supra now, whereas before the Supra was like 30 miles per hour quicker than the Skyline ever was in Gran Turismo 6. Now, as far as the tuning itself, for the upgrades, you want to drop the weight, of course, as far as it can go, increase the power as high as it can go, pretty much goes without saying. Traction control you really don't need on, it's all-wheel drive, of course, anyway, especially with super softs to boot. As far as the suspension, I'd recommend 100mm on the ride height, which is 15 higher than stock, or not stock, but 15 higher than the lowest, I should say. As far as the frequency, we've got 2.4 on the front and the back, which is, in other words, as high as that can go. Then for the anti-roll, we've got 5. For the compression and the rebound on the dampers, if the controller stops going crazy, then that's as low as possible. I've gone for 2 degrees of camber for this one, and the reason for that is because this doesn't have the same kind of advantages as something like a race car or a supercar, in as much as really low ride height, really low roof height, and a wide track, which equates to more stability. This is quite a tall car and it's not overly wide, so it could wallow around a little bit, so we've counteracted that with 2 degrees of camber. It feels great. I've used it in races, I've used it on its own, it's great through the corner. We've got neutral toe. Of course you want to set your rear downforce as low as possible. For the diff, I would recommend the lowest initial torque and braking, and then the highest acceleration sensitivity. And finally, of course, for the gearbox, you want the fully customized transmission, an auto setting of 249 miles per hour, then individual gears of 2.55, 1.7, 1265, 1, 825 and 0.7, with a final drive of 3. Now, if you need even more slipstream potential, then of course you could lower that to say 2.9 or even lower if you want to, but you will lose your cruising speed. It will immediately start to drop to like 258, 256, whereas this one, it can still do 260 without slipstream. So it's kind of like best of both worlds sort of thing. So that's it for the tune, but of course what you want to see is the kind of speeds that it can do, doing 260 on Route X. So for those who do love the R34, and of course that's most people, generally speaking, it's nice to know that it still has what it takes to really be a completely OP vehicle. When it comes to Gran Turismo, it's always been one of the most OP street cars in the game, and that hasn't changed. So for all of the realism of the rest of the cars, this one, it's still pretty over the top, let's be honest. It's right behind stuff like the Lamborghini Veneno, or the Diablo, and a couple of other supercars as well for top speed, which, for what it is pretty good. It's one of the quickest tuner cars in the game, up there with the Supra. It's still not quite as quick as the Supra in my experience, although of course off the line you have a huge advantage with the all-wheel drive. So overall, 260 under its own power. As you can see, you've got quite a lot of slipstream potential before you hit the red line. So if memory serves, I think you can get it up around about 285, maybe 290 with this particular final drive setting, maybe even a little bit higher. So if you do, as I said, need it to go above 300 with slipstream, which you definitely can, just lower the final drive a bit more. But you need to be sure that you don't need speed on your own. So if it's a race that's going to be entirely slipstream, then by all means go for it. If it's a race where people are like pitting in, for instance, and you will be driving on your own, well then you might miss those 5 or 6 miles per hour slower, because it does make a difference. So overall, if you do decide to use this tune, I hope you have a ton of fun with it, and of course click right here on screen to see all of my other tunes as well. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.